Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back here again. There are a couple of things I wanted to say as we start to talk about letting your light shine and what holds us back from that. The first is just a little download on your brain, okay? Our brain, because it's a survival organ, is very, very equipped to look at what's wrong and what's out of place and what do we need to pay attention to. And in my line of work as a trauma therapist, we're taught very early on that we actually have to bring the brain back to even noticing what's in place and what's going right. So when you find yourself focusing on things that are out of place, unless it's a truck bearing down on you, you may not want to take it literally, right? You might say, oh, my brain is being a very good survival organ. It's looking at everything that's not okay. But it has a hard time automatically moving to the whole picture. So you have to, which you're doing beautifully today, you have to beef that up. We have to feed an awareness of what's going right. So I wanted to start that way, just so you'll know if you find yourself drifting in the direction of only noticing everything that's going wrong, that's just a biological tendency. And you can learn how to bring yourself back, not by having to lie to yourself, but just by noticing a whole picture. Because there is always something else happening. Whenever we think things are disastrously out of place, there's always something else happening. There was an interview on NPR a couple of weeks ago, and a woman gave an example of this that I really, I thought, oh, I'm going to hold on to that and remember that every day. She said that the interviewer was talking to her about some of his despairing thoughts, and she said, I don't have time for that, don't bother me with that. She said, because the future is always surprising us. And when things look their worst, she said, it doesn't mean we're not supposed to do whatever we're doing to try to make it better. But don't tell me that's the whole picture. And the example she gave that so touched me, she said, when apartheid ended in South Africa, who on earth would have said they were going to release Nelson Mandela and he'd become leader of the country? It wasn't in the realm of let's see what's going to happen next. So I do a lot of work with something I call the optimal future self, which I'll weave in and out of this little talk today, which is about knowing that in this world we're in right now, we're beginning to understand that it's not a linear progression, that we live in a world kind of based more on an array of quantum probabilities, and they pop in and out. And I'm a deep fan of resonating with particular frequencies and particular ideas. And I think that even as we're working on ourselves, because our theme today is about how do we let ourselves shine, but even as we do it collectively, to keep in mind we need to do whatever we need to do, and sometimes there's a lot of work in making things work better, but we also want to be resonating with possibility. We want to have our orientation toward the idea that there's a probability out there that can offer new ideas, new options, new possibilities. So does that make sense? Just as a way to, it's kind of like each day dialing yourself in to the frequency that gives you forward movement towards something that may not even be clear to you right now, the way that Nelson Mandela wasn't clear to the present day until it started unfolding that he would be a real figure in what was happening. And this kind of service, actually, I'm so aware today that this is setting a frequency so that no matter what else might be out of place, this is a frequency where you resonate. And when we resonate, for me, it's kind of like that sets up the flow that we'll be following as the day or the month or the year unfolds itself. It doesn't mean we don't run into bumps along the way, but we're orienting to something that's going to touch into probabilities that may have solutions we can't even imagine at this point. So I wanted to just make that point here at the beginning, because in my years of working with optimal future ideas, I've seen things emerge that my conscious mind couldn't even wrap itself around, which is why tapping into optimal futures you don't want to have as a cognitive process, because your brain only knows what it knows already, right? Your intelligence only has the information it has today. And when we're talking about optimal probabilities, we want to be open to the surprises that the future might hold for us. So as we talk about how to get ourselves into being able to say yes, to be all we can be, we also maybe want to hold a collective view. Wouldn't it be a wild thing if humanity were able to express the best of us rather than the most frightened part of us? Certainly as a trauma therapist, I've worked with a lot of people who, because of their family of origin or their early experiences, learned very early on that shining was a recipe for very bad things, right? You'd either get humiliated or hurt or in some other way. It wasn't like, oh, let me do this and everyone will say good. So we've got some programming working in us that it can either be from the family, it can be from the culture, it can be from school, that's telling us don't even think about it, right? So when we start thinking about shining our light, we want to be willing to bump into what our protective system is saying, don't do that. I'm a very, very late bloomer. I've had this journey, and my first book came out in 1990. And I was at my office, and it arrived in a plain brown wrapper, which I thought was quite appropriate at the time because of how I felt about it. And I thought to myself, you probably ought to open this at home. I just had some idea, don't open this between clients, this would not be a good thing. So I took it home, and I opened up this envelope that was the very first copy of the very first book I ever had published. And I pulled the book out of the envelope to see how it looked as a real live book. And from somewhere way back there came the words, oh, now you've lost everything. This is the kind of programming that gets in there when we're really little. And that's the kind of programming that will keep us from shining. Now, I have a weird way of being with reality anyway, and one of my weird ways of being with reality is I just think that life wants all of us to be everything we can be, so that as it flows through the uniqueness of each of us as a person, it gets a full measure of the time it spends living us. You know, it's like if we hold back or we can only support somebody else, but we can't have our own light shining, life's not actually getting the full measure of the uniqueness of each of us. And what's it like to know there is no other human being on this planet who can be who you are? That each and every one of us is a totally unique expression of life moving into form. And it's become very important to me over these years to really support people in letting life have the full measure of its expression as who each one of us actually can be. One of the things that happens when we start to feel safe enough to be whole and to be seen, really to be seen that's why I love your song. It was so the opposite of what it's like when you're afraid to be seen. You know, it's like, wow. That was perfect. Because we want to be able to be seen, and now I forgot what I was saying. See, I love a postmenopausal brain. It's a very interesting place to live. It comes and it goes, and okay, the brain doesn't care. What was that? Anyway, so we're looking at how do we know that. Oh, I know what I was saying. Aha. See, it goes around the room and then it comes and lands again. You just have to have patience. When we're not afraid of shining, when we really have gotten hold of these old messages that tell us it's going to be very, very bad if we open up, once we know it's okay, we will automatically and happily support everyone else we come in contact with. Because if we know we're all one thing, there's nothing to compete with, there's nobody to have more of anything, because we're all it, we're all the same thing. And there can be a really deep delight in helping other people, supporting other people's movement into their shining when we know we have full permission to do that. So notice, are you aware of those places where you could be doing this, but you're kind of carefully stepping back? When you're in that space, look for an old message. Because I don't think we pop out being, oh, I can't show myself to the world. I think we pop out doing this, and then we learn pretty quickly with our attachment figures. If we look up and we see a face smiling back, we go, oh, this is okay, I can keep doing this. But often we look up and we see a frowning face or a disapproving face, or someone lets us know this is not a happy thing. And even if we are psychologically not aware of it, our bodies start to pull in, so that the movement toward just automatically gets pulled back in, all for a very good reason, because we want to be safe and we want to be connected. We've learned a lot in recent years about attachment issues. And what we know now is biologically, when we're little itty bitties, our bodies intrinsically know that if we don't make those attachment figures happy, physiologically we're going to die. So it becomes very compelling to match who we are to what our environment allows us to be. The lovely part is this is all healable. That's the exciting part for me over many, many years, has been moving more and more into an expertise in trauma treatment and watching people come into themselves. And one of the things I've learned, and it's going to be true of everyone in this room, we don't have to learn how to be engaged with life and living it fully. That's not something we really have to teach anybody. What we want to be able to do is help clear away the things that keep that natural movement of self from coming to the surface. We're made to shine, actually. It's how we're constructed. And I remember one of the people who has now become a dear friend and was one of my first teachers in trauma treatment. Her name's Diane Hiller. She would talk about how, just as Michelangelo said about David, you know, he's in the marble, I just got all the marble out of the way that was covering him up. Diane used to always talk about, we're all whole, there's a shining person in all of us. We just have to get all the stuff out of the way that keeps that from naturally emerging. So you want to ask yourself, have you given yourself permission to fully blossom? Whatever that means, it's going to be different and unique for each person. But how is it for you when you imagine blossoming without reservation? I used to say to myself, without reservation, without exception, without hesitation. That was a mantra I had to keep saying to myself so that I could catch the places where I was holding back. One of the things that makes this challenging at a cognitive level is there are two kind of fundamental cognitive styles around possibility. One is pretty common to the culture in general, which is lack consciousness, that there isn't enough to go around. And we learn lack consciousness in all kinds of different ways. The problem with it is, if we have that as our fundamental roadmap or blueprint about reality, then whenever we lose something or someone else gains something in a lack consciousness paradigm, somebody wins and somebody loses, always. So we might get competitive or possessive or all those things that forget about oneness and forget that we're all here to be lived fully. So there's lack consciousness, then there's abundance consciousness, which isn't off in la la land, and it's not saying everything's wonderful and it'll all be great, but it's saying in a world of oneness, there's enough to go around. I mean, we've kind of constructed it that it makes sense for some people to be in poverty, and it makes sense for some people to be extraordinarily rich. That's sort of a paradigm we have accepted. And I remember years ago, I used to think, oh, I bet there's a subversive way to change that from the inside out. What if we all believed everybody ought to have everything they need? What if that became a common belief that it wasn't okay for some people to have a lot and other people to have none? That might emerge a new probability that could come in some way. So I think that it's the shift toward interdependence and interconnection that allows us to remember that we're all in this together. And it only makes sense if we're supporting the life expression of everybody for whatever their unique place is in this whole thing that we talk about as our human community. And when we're in touch with oneness, we're talking about our whole planetary community, taking care of everybody. So I do believe each one of us that allows our light to shine and allows ourselves to take a step into saying, okay, life, live me fully, we're supporting that paradigm to be able to be more available to more people. So notice, what's it like if you say inside yourself, all right, life, I am all yours, and we are, what else is happening? I was walking through Central Park one day to my office, and I had a thought about my life, and then I started laughing out loud. You know how New York, you can do these things, nobody cares. And I started laughing out loud, and I thought, my life? Who am I kidding? Life is living me. I don't own the life that's living me. I'm kind of like here, and life will decide when it takes it away. But if you can say to life, alrighty, I'm equipped in this way, I got made a certain way, live me fully. I will hold nothing back. How does that feel if you imagine saying that? What it asks you to do is trust that life will live you in the ways that are perfect for you. It doesn't mean we won't have ups and downs, but what is lived in you will be what's right for you. I remember when I first started doing future self work back in 1980, I said yes. I didn't know what I was saying yes to, because again, it's not a cognitive, it wasn't like, oh, in 5 years I'll be doing blah, blah, blah. It was just yes to a body state that was more comfortable than the one I was living in at that time. And it created quite a wild ride of a lot of challenges to step up to stuff that scared me. One of them was my speaking phobia, which was horrendous. But for whatever reason, saying yes meant doing this. And so there was quite a journey getting me to this. But it was all right because it was the life as it lives me, bringing me more into the world. So as much as it was scary or challenging, or I cried a million, that's when I thought I should have gotten stock in tissues, Kleenex. Even though all of that process had to happen, it was absolutely right. And I'm living a life now that's absolutely right for me, and I wouldn't have known to make this up in a 5 or 10 year plan. It wouldn't have been on the horizon. So then a question about saying yes to all you can be might include trust. Can you trust the life that lives you? And certainly in a community like this, you're constantly generating the awareness that we're part of something much bigger that has our good at the heart of it. And I actually think this is true for absolutely everybody, but we humans seem to have a way of personalizing or grabbing at things that kind of can set them on a not exactly sparkling and shining for everybody. Since I believe so deeply in collective consciousness, it seems to me that the more we can practice a sense of oneness and interconnection, and practice delighting in the success of other people, and really delighting in how we can offer whatever we can to help without diminishing ourselves. I mean, I'm a wonderful, well, I've healed a bit, but boy, I used to be a gold medal card carrying codependent, and I would help you do anything. And I would hide in the background, because my learning was, I take care of you and then you won't be mad at me, and that'll all work out very well. that wouldn't obviously work. And when I was handing myself over to life, that was not going to be the recipe that ended up happening. But I'm still a pretty good helper, because once a codependent, I don't think we ever unlearn that capacity to jump in and help people. But imagine what it feels like if you really can trust and say to life, take me, I am all yours. Live me to the fullest and help me heal whatever I learned, whatever I carry that holds me back, because our holding back is our creation. And it does probably mean breaking family rules, probably. Most probably, most of us carry some kind of family rule somewhere along the line that didn't exactly completely approve of what we were doing. So the lovely thing about being an adult is we can upset people and we still will survive. It's not a life-threatening problem. It's knowing that each and every one of us needs to be lived as fully as possible into our uniqueness. Nobody can replace any one of us who's in this room right now. There won't ever be a duplicate. Even if you're an identical twin, there's not a duplicate. Life is having a unique opportunity with each one of us. So I'm going to ask you to just, how am I doing on time? About 2 minutes? Okay. 5 minutes? Thank you. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that. Because what I'd like to ask you to do is go inside for a moment. And I'm going to ask you to go back into your heart space, which is a very important place of intelligence. We're a culture that doesn't understand that the heart is an organ of perception that many cultures have used as their place of identity, their place where they identify themselves. So just from your heart space for a moment, I want to ask you to imagine, and you can do it internally or imagine you're doing it. Notice what happens if you say yes to the life living you with your whole body, mind, being, with your willingness to be lived absolutely fully. Just noticing how that feels to you, what holds back or what gets excited. No matter how much you've accomplished, no matter who you are, feel into life's presence, living you absolutely without reservation. Recognizing that saying yes is something you can trust, because if you orient to your optimal future, remember there are lots of different probabilities, so we're orienting to what's optimal. It's optimal for you, uniquely suited for you. So just noticing how you feel saying yes. If it feels all right, I recommend every single day before you start your day, saying yes to your optimal future without having to have any idea what that means. Just yes. And saying it from your heart space is kind of a handy place to connect in with a larger reality. Make sure you're saying yes to your optimal future, which we know really is here in the present. And it's a way to open up to what life can live in you as your unique self, as it seeks to do in every single one of us. And we can celebrate each other as that same life, living itself fully, without reservation, expressing in and as who we are. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you.